Hello and welcome to the TM Tax Practices video series, Getting Ready for Tax Season. This is video 9 of 9 where we are looking at, do I need to report my other income? Now, this is a little bit different from am I required to file? Now, we do have an am I required to file, and you should go back and take a look at that video if you haven't already. This is particularly looking at, now we've already determined that we are going to be required to file a tax return, but now I have these other items of income and I want to know if they need to be reported. That's kind of what we're looking at here today. And so I'm putting here some typical types of other income, certainly not all of them that we should be looking at. And that's number one, 1099 NEC income. And what I will mention about the 1099 NEC or the 1099 non-employee compensation is that it is only required to be filed if you were paid over $600. If you did not receive a 1099 NEC, but you did receive payments for products or services, you are going to have to report that. But let's say you did. Typically the 1099 NEC is going to be for our very popular gig economy income. So maybe you were doing a little bit of driving for DoorDash or Uber Eats. You earned some income that way. You're going to need to absolutely report that income. 1099 NEC income is almost always going to be reported on your Schedule C as sole proprietor self-employed income, and it is going to be subject to self-employment tax. So you do want to make sure that you are paying attention to any expenses related to generating that income, because you are allowed to deduct those expenses as long as they're reasonable and necessary, okay? Now, 1099 miscellaneous, generally that's going to be rents and sometimes other income. So if you have rental properties and you were receiving rental income, you're likely going to receive a 1099 miscellaneous to report that rental income. If for some reason you did not, that doesn't mean you don't have to report it. You still do have to report that income and make sure, again, you're deducting any expenses related to generating that income or holding that property against that income. Now, other income, I do get asked, or I have been asked in the past, when does a 1099, when will a 1099 not be required to be reported on Schedule C, not be required to pay self-employment tax? Well, typically that's not going to happen on the 1099 NEC. It'll happen on the 1099 miscellaneous. And some of those other types of income will be if you were received any awards from a business or school. Maybe you got a prize or some sort of reward for something somewhere. You're going to receive the 1099 miscellaneous for that. Those are the types of other income that you receive where you actually didn't earn the income. It wasn't any kind of work that you performed, services you performed, products you sold. You simply received the income, like again, as an award or something similar to that. Then that's not going to be subject to self-employment tax, but it is still reportable and includable in your gross income. And you might get a 1099B or even a 1099 DIV or a 1099 INT. Those are all just 1099 broker statements. So if you have any kind of investment activity in a brokerage account, you'll likely receive a 1099B. If it's not in a brokerage account, you might receive a 1099 DIV for dividends or INT for interest. But those are all includable in income and should be reported. Next is a K1 for maybe you have a partnership or an S corporation. Sometimes it's estates and trusts that you are a member of, and you're receiving a K1 for that income. Number one, before you file your tax return, if you know that you have invested in a partnership or an S corporation, or you are an owner of one of those things, you want to get in touch with the responsible party of that partnership or S corporation to make sure a K1 is coming to you. Again, if you haven't received it already, that will need to be reported on your tax return. Now with the K-1 from Partnerships and S Corporation, it could be that you had income, or perhaps you had a loss. Now, of course, if you had income, that's going to have to be included in your net income. But if you had losses, those losses could possibly be deductible against your other income. If they're not, they will be able to carry forward and be deductible against income of future years. So it is always still important to report that, even if it was a loss. Okay, so those are just basically some general things that you want to make sure you're reporting. And again, what we're looking at here is making sure that you're reporting all your income. These are all forms that are also reported to the IRS under your Social Security number. So if you do not report these items of income, you might receive a friendly letter from your local IRS office to let you know that you have underreported your income and they have recalculated your total tax due. We don't want that to happen, so go ahead and report everything as you get it, okay? Don't wait for the IRS to reach out to you. You don't want those headaches or problems. So again, this is not everything. If you know you received income for any kind of activity, make sure you go ahead and talk to your tax professional or any tax professional about it, and make sure it is income that you need to be reporting, because there are some types of income that you don't need to report. We've talked about in our Am I Required to File video, but I'll give you an example. If you have received an inheritance, if you receive cash or property as an inheritance, that cash or property is not immediately taxable. However, if you received property and you sold that property, you may have a taxable gain, and you certainly have a reportable transaction. So just make sure that you are reporting everything, you are providing everything to your tax professional. If you're filing on your own, make sure you're reporting that information. If you're using a tax professional, make sure you provide them with that information. Well, I hope you found this somewhat helpful to give you a general idea and overview of some of the other income that you really should be reporting. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us at info@tmtaxpractices.com. Check out our website for additional resources and information. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn.